I'm Tim Monroe, and this is what I really want to talk about. Everyone has a passion and a story to tell, something that lights them up. On this show, we talk to fascinating people about the things that really matter to them and to all of us. Sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's deep. Every time, we learn something new. It's what I really want to talk about. And if you want to be part of this ongoing conversation, let me know. My email is tsmonroe001@gmail.com. My guest today is Tony Crachiolo. Tony is currently the volunteer leader of the Berea Food Bank and has been involved in that mission for 10 years. Prior to this work, Tony was in business for nearly 30 years. He helped business owners reimagine their operations and change culture, business models, systems, and pretty much everything, soup to nuts. The goal is return them to profitability. He returned to school to study public administration with a focus on organizational development, leadership theory and practice, and the interface between NGO, government, and private sector. His work these past 6 years as a leader of the food bank blends his experience leading people in business with his studies in public administration and his vision of what an emergency food pantry should be. Tony also acts in and directs plays and particularly likes using surrealism and magical realism to get at human stories and hard truths. Welcome, Tony. What do you really want to talk about today?
Well, Tim, what I really want to talk about today is Berea Food Bank, Bereans United for Utility and Rent Relief, and the Frank Gailey Transient Emergency Assistance Fund. Those are the three programs of Berea Faith Community Outreach, which is Berea's oldest and largest local charitable organization. Mm-hmm. I want to talk a little bit about its history, how it came to be called a food bank and not a food pantry.
Okay.
And how it has developed under some inspired leadership over the years and where it is now and perhaps where we'd like to take it in the future.
Okay, excellent. I think a lot of people are interested in hearing about that and maybe even hearing about how they could help. But let's start a little bit with you, and so we kind of get an on-ramp to what you're doing now. So what were you doing prior to running the food bank? What was your journey from, we talked a little bit about in your bio, but it's not very specific, from all of that until, what you're doing now?
Well, the last 10 years or so that I was in business, I would come into a failing small corporation like a mom and pop place, or a small family business that was failing, and take over all of the operations, look at industry best practices, apply them, and when I was successful, returned that business to profitability. I focused on the automotive retail business.
Were you a consultant or?
Well, a consultant comes and says, here's what you should be doing after I leave. Mm-hmm. What I did was I said, here's what I'm going to come in and do for your business. And I'm going to be here basically in charge of everything until we see a return to profitability. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to give the keys back to you.
Okay.
So a working consultant, a takeover specialist, with none of my own money at stake.
Right.
That's what I spent a lot of time. Sometimes it was a department in a business. Sometimes it was a larger aspect of it. Sometimes it was the entire place.
Mm-hmm. And you said there's the automotive industry generally?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
Yeah. I had worked for Saturn Corporation for a decade.
Okay.
Different kind of car, a different kind of car company. Remember?
Right.
And that's where I developed and learned a lot of the skills that I could bring to other brands after Saturn was retired by General Motors.
So was this your own business that you were running, or were you working for somebody?
Well, it was a combination of those things.
Okay.
It was a gray area in between,
and
that's the easiest and simplest way to put it.
So how did you go from sort of corporate turnaround guy to living here in Berea and running the Berea Food Bank?
Well, I was still a turnaround guy when we first moved here. My wife came to take a great job with Berea College in the English department, and we decided to stay.
Okay.
And after a while, I realized that I wasn't so passionate about what I had been doing anymore. Mm-hmm. And my wife, like every good academic, said, well, why don't you go back to school? So I went back to school and studied public administration at EKU. Mm-hmm. And I found myself drawn to organizational development, leadership studies, and I had a particular research interest in where the boots on the ground that are non-governmental organization charities and government and the private sector kind of intersect.
Right.
And while I was studying that, I met the late and great Jerry Workman, who was a fixture in Berea, and he was the longtime coordinator of the Berea Food Bank. Jerry was a man that no one could say no to. And one day I was criticizing Jerry. He had started a Facebook page. He was a pioneer, 2011, for the food bank. And I was telling, Jerry, I did a lot of advertising. I did a lot of marketing. Your Facebook page is terrible. And he looked at me and said, oh, yeah, you think you could do better? And I said, yeah, Jerry, I think a lot of people could do better. You really need to do this and this and this and this and this. And he said, oh, you think you're so good at it? You do it.
Good for him.
And I said, no, Jerry, I didn't mean it that way, buddy. He said, well, that's how it's going to be. Let me give you the password. And so I took over communications of the Facebook page. And then not too long after that, Jerry came to me and said, if you really want to understand the food bank, you've got to start volunteering. I want you to start coming Fridays. So there I was, coming Fridays to volunteer at the food bank. And I met there the 5 women who were, with Jerry, the heart and soul and arms and legs of the food bank. There were several other volunteers, but they were the ones who'd been there the longest, and they had shaped to the extent that they could how the food bank worked.
And let's be clear, Jerry was a volunteer also, right?
Jerry was a
So
volunteer.
no one's getting paid here.
No one's getting paid. Nobody's getting paid.
Yeah.
Jerry had worked in a nonprofit his entire career. And after he retired, he was in his late 70s when I met him, or somewhere in his 70s when I met him. And he was doing this as a volunteer. He would tell the story that, 20 years ago, I joined the food bank as the leader with 2 bags of groceries, $400, and a church basement. And that man built it to its own building loaned by the city.
Yeah.
Tens of thousands of pounds of food distributed every year, a regular schedule, and so on. So I follow in his footsteps. When he was ready to retire was in 2020. And you may recall that in March of 2020, that's when the first
I have vague memories of that, yeah.
COVID case came to Kentucky, and we were all in a panic, and the economy collapsed, and we were afraid to touch groceries, and so on. I had joined the board at Jerry's insistence a year earlier, and I came to the board and said, Jerry's retiring. Here's a 9-point plan for how we can keep the food bank open during a pandemic that we don't know the cause of.
Right.
Fortunately, I had friends who worked in infectious diseases, and I read the CDC guidelines voraciously, and so we instituted a lot of safety protocols. And they said, we'll keep the food bank open if you'll run it. I said, well, no, I'm not sure about that, but they said we are.
Yeah.
And so since March of 2020, I've been directing the Berea Food Bank.
They made you an offer you couldn't refuse.
Yeah. I felt like it was it's a wonderful life. When he comes in and after his dad dies and says, you have to save the thrift and loan, you have to do this, you have to do that, and the board voted and said, yeah, we will if you'll run it.
If you'll run it.
It was that exact situation.
Yeah. I had a similar situation once where I was on a board of a nonprofit, and I was just sort of having fun being on the board, and then all of a sudden the person who was chair of the board, she said, I want to take you out for a drink. I said, sure, okay. And the first thing she said to me is, you're not leaving this bar until you promise to be the next chair. And at first I was like, well, it's not going to win. But by the end of the time, I was the next chair. Yeah. We'll dive into the food bank and how it works. But I want to ask sort of a bigger question first. Have you always had sort of a heart for service, or is this something that kind of like developed while you were working?
I have not always had a heart for service.
Yeah.
I grew up in what we would call today a disadvantaged household, and I worked 60, 70, 80 hours a week so that I would never be poor again. That was my primary concern for nearly 30 years. There were a few times when it was advantageous for the dealers I was working with to throw benefit galas.
Car dealers you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
To throw benefit galas. I remember one for the Kidney Foundation, red carpet, limousines, the whole 9 yards. And I found that thrilling and at the time a bit more interesting than the work I was doing. And that's just something that sort of percolated in the back of my head, that I really enjoyed events. When I worked for Saturn Corporation, they were famous for hosting events for their customers. You know, an annual picnic, a homecoming in Spring Hill, and so on and so forth. And so there was something planned every quarter, and I found I really, really enjoyed planning those sorts of things. And there was always some charitable edge to them, where proceeds from this, that, or the other were going to go to a charity. And I found I enjoyed that very much. But no, I was all about chasing profit. And when that lost its allure, and, you know, you start thinking about, well, what do I really want to do now? And I studied public administration. I said, you know, I think I can do some good with what I learned in business in the public sector. I have some strong opinions about what charitable organizations are like, what the nonprofit sector is like, and I think I could make some good contributions with what I learned in business.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And then I just sort of criticized Jerry's Facebook page one day,
and here we are.
And here we are.
Yeah. It's a good story. I mean, everybody has their story, but that's a pretty good one. So, so let's talk more specifically about the Berea Food Bank. And I think you have sort of a unique vision. So talk about sort of your vision for the food bank and how maybe it's different than other places, other similar places.
Yeah, I have to go backwards in time just a little bit to talk about that. Well, no, here's a primer on what emergency food pantries how they generally operate. Generally speaking, almost exclusively, they ask the public to donate items to them: bottles, boxes, jars, and cans. They have volunteers that work there, and they require people who are coming to get food assistance to make an appointment and bring in a certain list of documents with them. They call them proofs. Proof of income, proof of residence, proof of a Social Security card for everybody in the household, perhaps a tax return, everyone who's in the household's name on a lease, and more. Proof that all the children are in school. I find that to be daunting just thinking about it myself, and my life's pretty organized. And I can't imagine someone coming to a food bank for the first time who's lost a job and is desperate and maybe has moved a few times in the last few years, saying, here's the giant list of documents you have to bring in to get assistance. I have a problem with that.
Yeah.
So when I started running the food bank, or coordinating the food bank, leading the food bank, we were asking people for some proofs, and they had to do an interview and sometimes make an appointment. And that's sort of the old school way of doing it, that accreted over time at food pantries. And I know why it happened that way for a couple of reasons, both of which I reject. One was, well, those food pantries say, well, we're just doing what the government does. Well, a local charitable organization isn't the government and doesn't have to do those things. And some food pantries are deeply suspicious of the people that they serve, which seems very strange. But, you know, compassion fatigue is a thing. And the United States has a long history of vilifying poverty as a character flaw and choosing not to trust people who are in need of assistance because there must be something wrong or dishonest about them. Studies have proven, data has proven that none of those things are actually true. The guidelines the government uses are the government's guidelines. Charitable organizations can do as they please, so we don't have to accrue rules to try to figure out how we should go about doing what we're doing. We can do it pretty much any way we want. So as someone who's been a change maker in business, I said, well, you know, we don't have to do it this way anymore. We can change things and make it simpler for someone to get assistance. You know, if you've got hungry kids out in the car and you're coming to apply for food assistance, well, maybe you don't need an appointment. Maybe you should be able to come anytime the food pantry is open. Maybe the application could be simple and have just demographic information. Maybe all those proofs are silly and you don't need them. If someone asks for assistance, you know, we'll give it. I like simplicity. I like boiling things down to the easiest understood elements. And so our application process now is if you ask us for assistance, you will receive it, period. No one is ever turned away from Berea Food Bank empty-handed,
Right.
period. That's actually our first rule.
Right.
No one's ever turned away empty-handed from Berea Food Bank, period.
Yeah.
And there are some other things that food pantries do. I talked about how they ask people to donate bottles, boxes, jars, and cans. Well, remember, when I took over, we were in that pandemic, and we weren't supposed to touch our groceries when we brought them home for 3 days.
Yeah.
And we weren't supposed to have a contact with a lot of people.
Right,
So
yeah.
Jerry had set up this wonderful system where people brought us food, all the time. And we needed them to stop coming for their safety and for ours.
Right.
And there was a business model change I'd been looking at for some time that said, with $10, the average person could at the time say, buy us 10 cans of soup. Well, with $10, I can buy 24 cans of soup.
Right.
Through our suppliers,
Yes.
through this giant network. So
Yeah.
I can do so much more with the money that was going towards that food than I can with the food itself. So we made the shift during the pandemic away from asking the public for bottles, boxes, jars, and cans to asking them for money instead. And that has blown up into the vehicle by which the Berea Food Bank has grown tremendously over the past 6 years. I thought it was going to be big, but it's bigger than I even imagined it could possibly be.
Yeah, so I'd love to focus on a couple of things you said.
Yeah.
One is this idea of everyone gets assistance no matter what.
Yeah.
And I guess the idea of not doing that is somebody could come who doesn't need it and is just sort of trying to game the system somehow, which seems very unlikely to me. I can't imagine. So, I mean, maybe 1 in a million might do that. It's okay, fine, you have some food. Like, I don't get it.
There is a great deal of fear
Yeah.
in many nonprofits about the wrong people getting help.
Right. Yeah.
And that there are scammers out there who are going to come and get something for nothing.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you in my experience working with the food pantry for 10 years, 6 of which leading it, and the data, the research data says, that is a vanishingly small problem.
Right.
That's almost a non-existent
Yes.
problem.
Yes.
People want to eat the food that they buy. They want to buy
Right.
the things that they like.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to come to an emergency food pantry. So I can't say it doesn't happen.
Right.
But let's say that there's some truth to it. Let me just examine that. Let's just say there's some truth to that, if there's even an iota of truth to it. Should I punish and treat 99 people in need like criminals because one person might be?
Right.
And my answer to that is no. I mustn't do that because those 99 people, they're in tough shape.
Yeah.
They're having problems. And frankly, when you're poor and you go ask for charitable aid, more often than not, you are treated at best officiously. Sometimes you are treated judgmentally. Sometimes you are condescended to and looked down upon. Ask anyone who's ever gone to a food pantry.
Right.
I reject all of that. We at Berea Food Bank are in the hospitality business, and free food happens to be our product. People come to us, and the idea that we have is that they should be happy that they've come, pleased while we're serving them, and feel uplifted when they leave.
Yeah.
And to that end, we have a welcoming crew.
Okay.
Their job is to chat with people, make sure that they know how welcome they are, ask them questions, answer their questions, I should say, and make sure that they understand that we're glad they're there. We're overjoyed to serve them, and we hope they'll come back if they need us again.
Yeah.
That's not just wishful thinking, oh, we want people to feel great. We actually have concrete policies and procedures to make sure that happens. I want people who leave Berea Food Bank to leave with the best impression they could possibly ever have of a food pantry.
Yeah.
That's from years in business where it's like, you want your customers to leave happy they came and do business with you. It's the same way, as far as I'm concerned, about philanthropy.
Well, it's sort of flipping the paradigm, right? Of these, and you just said it. Like these are customers. They're not, they're people you should serve.
Yes.
And you want to make them happy, and that's why you're there.
Yes.
You're not there to put a barrier in front of them in order to get what they need. You're there to make it smoother and happier and better. And that's just amazing. I mean, that's incredible. And let's emphasize again, Tony, you don't get paid, do you?
No.
Okay. I have a question. I have lots of questions, but one, I'm just thinking to myself, I'm not a particularly religious man, but I do have, a pretty strong sense of morality and spirituality and all of that. Does that play a role in this for you? Is there some sort of, faith-based piece of this for you?
Well, I can say that the philosophy that I have about how this should work is deeply informed by my faith. Mm-hmm. And I also must say that many of the 40 or so volunteers that we have are also there because of how their faith demands that they behave. Mm-hmm. And we have many volunteers who are there because of how their secular philosophy demands that they behave. Mm-hmm. And we have some volunteers who have no particular philosophy at all. It just feels right to them.
Right.
So it's a perhaps taken all together, it's a combination of all of those things. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is how, faithful or not faithful, this is how I think we should go through the world, being good to one another.
Yeah.
It just makes society happier and healthier and wiser and more friendly to everybody.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I want.
So I'd like to hear a little more, too, about, you mentioned how, the again, flipping a paradigm here, where the old paradigm for food banks is people bring the leftover cans and stuff that they have in their pantry that they're probably not going to eat and donate it to the food bank, or maybe they make a special trip and buy things just for the food bank. Mm-hmm. But they're buying food items for the food bank, often non-perishable in a can. And yet you said no, we don't want that because you can buy more groceries through your systems, than an individual can, bring them to you. This really resonates for me. I worked for a nonprofit that did a lot of work in Honduras, and people would come down and visit. And, American people would come down to help, and they would load their suitcases with things like, and this is for students, for kids, for young kids. So they would load their suitcases with things like, bathroom products and toothpaste and toothbrushes and shoes and things like that. And totally well-intended, absolutely well-intended. But I had to step in and say, similar to what you were saying, if you would give me the value of what's in that suitcase in a check, we could do so much more with it. So talk about how that went for you.
Well, it's something I'd been thinking about for a long time. And of course, when the pandemic came, it forced our hand.
Yeah.
And so here are the benefits of doing it this new way. With money, I am finally in control of the inventory at the food bank. Mm-hmm. So it's no longer sort of a mishmash of what people felt like donating.
Right.
So we can be meal-centric about what we order.
Yeah.
It used to be that when people came to the food bank, we could afford to send them home with 3 or 4 days worth of food of whatever people had donated. Mm-hmm. And they could come every 3 months. Today, when people come to the food bank, they receive food for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for a week for every member of the household. And people in need can come every month. So we're able to balance a nutritious, healthy diet that provided for every meal for a week. Mm-hmm. That is the huge advantage that moving to money had. We also don't have to spend hours on end inspecting, checking over, disposing of about 25% of what's donated, and then trying to cobble together decent food baskets from it. We have it all set up so that people are going to get breakfast, lunch, and dinner for a week.
Yeah.
And it's also allowed us to grow in ways that pantries don't imagine growing. Mm-hmm. One of the cardinal rules I know of in the nonprofit world is that nonprofits do not share resources.
Right.
Period.
Unfortunately, yeah.
We do.
Yeah.
Not just intellectual resources, but we share actual bought and paid for resources. There are organizations in town who are also in the business of feeding people. Most of the ones I would talk about would cook meals and make them. Room in the Inn Berea springs to mind, up initiative of Madison County, Appalachian Community Meal efforts at Union Church and other places. Well, I view us as venture philanthropists. Everybody knows what a venture capitalist is. You've got a great product. You need funding. I've got $50 million. I'm going to invest in it now. Now I own half your company.
And I expect a return.
And I expect a return, and now I own half your company.
Yeah.
We identify worthy causes that we think are worth support and have a chance at a long run, and choose to support them in the beginning. When Room in the Inn Berea began, we supported them with all of the food they needed to cook meals for their clients. And then the next year, a little bit less.
Yeah.
As their fundraising got on its feet, and now they're in their 7th or 8th year, they don't hardly need any help at all from us.
Right.
And we've moved that venture philanthropy on to another organization, and so on and so forth. It's anathema to most nonprofits because they're operating in a scarcity mindset.
Right.
I'm not operating in a scarcity mindset.
Right.
The more organizations that are effectively feeding people in Berea, the more I can help all these boats rise, the better chance we'll have of achieving our goal, that hunger doesn't find any home in Berea. And if I can have partners who do that and I can help them get off the ground, well, eventually we'll win that battle. So that's how I look at that.
Yeah, that's great. And you'll be happy to know that just yesterday, Alicia Mora, who's the volunteer leader of Room at the Inn, was honored by Berea College for her impact in the community. So, yeah. Okay, let's talk a little more sort of, brass tacks here. I'd love to know, for instance, what is your, how many people do you feed a year or a week, or however you keep that, however you keep track of that, and sort of what's your annual budget? Like, how much does it cost to keep doing this?
Well, we don't just have the Berea Food Bank. We also have Bereans United for Utility and Rent Relief, where we help low-income people once a year with energy assistance or with a partial rent payment. We also have the Frank Gailey Transient Emergency Assistance Fund, where we help stranded travelers through our partnership with the Berea Police Department, and we help people who have immediately fled domestic violence with assistance before social programs can take over. So we have these 3 programs. The food bank is by far and away the largest one. Last year, we served at the food bank. We had nearly 8,000 visits at the food bank. And in addition to that, we served several partners with groceries. We also have a relationship with Berea Community School. We restocked the emergency pantry there with over 100 cases of food. So taken all together, we distributed approaching 200,000 pounds of food last year, including fruits and vegetables and things like that. Around that much, and about 8,000 people came to the Berea Food Bank. That's the nuts and bolts of it.
That's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people.
When you think about it, what's the population of Berea? Maybe 15,000?
Well, some of our clients come every month.
Okay, so it's repeat visitors.
Yeah.
But still.
So 8,000 visits.
Yeah.
For instance, about 60% of our clients are retired people whose only source of income is Social Security. As costs have risen and everything else, they've come to rely upon us more and more. We have a special program for people 60 and older. They receive a bit more protein than others receive, and they make up about 60% of our clients. For some of those clients, they come every month, and we wind up supplying about 24% of the food they consume in a year.
Wow.
So we're a sustaining food bank for them.
Yeah.
So we also have special programs for people with people with children. People with children, we have the kids table with Cheerios and juice boxes and things like that. So they get a little bit extra on top of some fun things that kids want to eat. In addition to all the healthy, nutritious food as well. So
Tony, 200,000 pounds of food.
Yeah.
So what does 200,000 pounds of food cost?
Oh my!
Or maybe a better way to put that.
Let me talk in dollars and cents.
Yeah, that's.
Berea Faith Community Outreach, which is the name of our corporation, with the 3 programs, our budget this year is about $180,000 for all of our programs. About $180,000. That includes the cost of insuring our activities and
keeping the lights on.
Yeah, actually, we don't have to keep the lights on.
No, the city does that. Okay, that's
the
good
city
to know.
has been great and generous to us.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have a professional cleaner that comes in because I really like tidy. And other than that, insurance and the cost of materials and stuff like that. And
so $180,000 a year
Yeah.
to buy 200,000 pounds of food. So, I mean, I know that's not a one-to-one.
It's not a one-to-one
thing,
because a solid $40,000 of that is funding for Burr.
Okay.
And then there's
the utility and rental relief.
Yeah. Utility and rental relief program. And then there's several $1,000s for the Frank Gailey Fund, which helps stranded travelers and people fleeing domestic violence.
So you're doing a heck of a lot with a very little. I mean,
Yes.
that's the way I'm looking at it.
But that's the beauty of us switching to cash.
Right.
I could never do this if people were bringing in
No way.
bottles, boxes, jars, and cans.
Yeah.
We could never even approach this. Compared to the old way, we are distributing, and this is not an exaggeration of any kind, we're distributing 10 times the amount of food than we were under the old system. We're able to do that.
Yeah.
10 times the amount of food because of this change in business model.
And you mentioned some of the people who are come to the food bank or clients, customers of the food bank. You mentioned
Clients.
seniors who are maybe on a Social Security and rely. But in this area, how what is your client base? And have you seen it change and grow over the last few years?
Oh, have we ever?
Yeah.
I remember making a Facebook post in 2018. We were flabbergasted. 110 families had come to the Berea Food Bank in a month, where we'd normally see somewhere between 60 and 80. We'd never been so busy.
Yeah.
And we were sort of I was crowing about that and asking for assistance at the same time, that we were able to reach that many people. Well, today, we serve an average of 250 families in a month.
Wow.
Sometimes closer to 300 families in a month. So
and those aren't repeat visits; those are unique.
That's
families.
300 families coming to see us.
Yeah.
In a month.
Yeah.
And of course, last year during the SNAP crisis, we saw in a 6-week period 1,800 families come to see us.
Yeah.
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 So
amazing.
It's
So who are those people? Like, tell us a little bit. Like, what's not typical, but who are these people who are coming, and why are they coming? What's happening out there that's causing the food insecurity issues? I know that's a big question.
Yeah, that's a big question.
Yeah.
Rising costs,
Yeah.
stagnant wages, stagnant benefits programs. In a nutshell, that's it.
Yeah.
Rising costs,
Yeah.
stagnant wages, and stagnant.
So these aren't necessarily people who are not working or unemployed,
No.
or they're working people who just can't make ends meet.
Well, that's part of it. I'll break it down for you.
Yeah.
60% of our clients, roughly 60% of our clients, are no longer of working age.
Okay.
About 10 to 15% of our clients are children. Many of them residing with those grandparents who are no longer working.
Yeah.
And we all know the reasons for that.
Sure.
And the rest are people who are who are working and they're just unable to make ends meet.
Yeah.
They're in low-wage jobs where their rent's gone up 35% a year for the last 2 years. They're in between a job. They got sick and got fired. They lost a little bit of their SNAP benefits due to the government cuts to how people can get SNAP benefits. The smart people in this industry tell us that this year, because of persistent inflation, persistent high prices, and extraordinary cuts to programs that aid the poor, that we should expect to see another 30% increase in the number of people coming to see us.
30%.
30%.
Yeah. Wow.
We budgeted accordingly this year.
Okay.
We're prepared for that.
Yeah.
Next year, who knows? But this year, we're prepared for that, and we've been budgeting for that all along.
Have you seen an increase in financial support from donors because of, the sort of what people are perceiving as cuts to important programs?
I wish I could say yes.
Yeah.
But a lot of the people who give us money, they're feeling the pinch of
Sure.
persistent high prices as well. And so the trend has been, data is really important to me to make decisions from. The trend has been since 2022, early 2023, for donations to fall. And that's a trend that we've seen nationwide. There are spikes during times of crisis, like a flood or the SNAP crisis that occurred, but we're generally seeing out-of-pocket donations from the public decline. I used to tell people in business when times were tough, and times are tough now, I would tell them, I can't make the pie any bigger.
Right.
But I can make sure we cut a bigger slice of the pie. And that's why I spend a lot of time on social media and attracting media attention to our activities and going and speaking to groups.
Right.
So that although I can't squeeze the economy to make more money come our way, I can make sure that when people think about giving, they think about the oldest and largest local charitable organization that is helping the most people in Berea.
The most elemental need.
Yeah, with the most fundamental need is having enough to eat.
Yeah. This is begging a question for me, Tony. So here you are, you're a volunteer, and you're talking about increased need at the food bank, increased need for promoting the food bank, for making sure everybody knows it's there, increased need for raising revenue, raising donations to make sure you can keep doing this. And it's an all-volunteer staff. Is that sustainable long term? I mean, I'm presuming, you're a lucky man because you can do this work without taking home a paycheck for whatever reason you can, right? I mean, and so God bless you. But is that, the next Tony, the next leader, it may not be in that position. So what do you see for the future there?
Yeah, this is our fundraising model is, our current fundraising model is at its absolute limit.
Yeah.
There isn't much of a way forward with that in terms of growth or meeting rising need.
Right.
I have some proposals.
And let me just go back one thing. You said $180,000 a year.
Yeah.
How much of that comes from just individual donations?
The vast majority of it.
Okay. There aren't many grants or...
There are a few grants for food pantries. We did receive a beautiful $10,000 grant last year from the Madison County Health Department,
nice,
with which to buy a bunch of slow cookers.
Yeah,
and provide people with recipes, because that's a great economical way to cook good economical food. But in terms of here's money, buy food with it. There are very few grants.
Yeah.
In the way most grantors want you to do something new and different from what you're doing now.
Right.
And you ask for funding for that.
Right.
And that's problematic for us because, then someone has to go do it.
Yeah.
I'm about at the limit of what I'm able to do as a part-time volunteer.
Right.
And our regular volunteers are as well.
Yeah.
So our current fundraising model will not allow us to grow any further. We've reached the peak of it. That's that. So now we're facing another crossroads, just like we did 6 years ago when the pandemic came. We're at another crossroads, and we have to make a decision as a board. Are we going to grow in the face of adversity? Are we going to choose growth, which I'm deeply in favor of? Or are we going to allow the food bank and Burr and the Frank Gailey Fund, are we going to allow them to shrink?
Yeah.
And I am deeply in favor of bold choices that support growth. That's what I've been doing all along at the food bank, making radical choices that other food pantries wouldn't make and finding success and growth through making those choices.
Right, because it seems to me, that the need's not going to change, or the need's not going to decrease like we wish it would, right? We wish that all of our friends and neighbors were, well fed and sort of healthy and safe in that way. But that's probably not going to be the case for who knows how long. And so that need's not going away. And yet here you are, really meeting the need as best you can. and needing to think about, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, what's this going to look like?
Yes.
How are we going to keep doing this? Do you interact with other, similar places and have these conversations? I mean, there must be some that are actually bigger and actually have paid staff and all that.
Oh, yeah. I've talked with the places that have paid staff, and they're doing wonderful things.
Yeah.
And planning futures and stuff like, but they're magnitudes larger than us.
Yeah.
One of them just built, a 1 million square foot warehouse.
Wow.
And so there are really, really large ones that we just don't have enough in common with. And the vast majority of pantries that are about our size are sleepy little pantries that are satisfied to wait for hunger to come to their door and give them a few days' worth of food.
Mm-hmm.
We're occupying a strange middle place that pantries don't occupy.
Right.
So the path that we're going to take has to be deeply informed by who we are,
Yeah.
what our philosophy is, because it's radically different from many other pantries,
Right.
and what sort of town Berea is.
Yes.
Again, a special, special place.
Mm-hmm.
And we have some proposals before the board that it's far too early to talk about.
Yeah.
That I believe that if we accept the one that I proposed, that we will be able to grow into the future. I can see a time where fundraising for us becomes sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
I can see a time where our mission, our purpose, is the signature event that large and small places support because it is the most fundamental act of charity.
Yeah.
I can see a future where we grow and where we don't have to have a super passionate, super motivated person with a vision, great vision for the future, where that's not necessary, useful, but not absolutely necessary.
Well, you hope you find somebody like that, but then you can pay them, right? And they can, it's their job, right? Yeah. And So, I think this is really a fascinating conversation. As you know, I have a lot of experience in the nonprofit world, and I sort of, this all really resonates with me a lot. But one thought I have is that, you're sort of a victim of your own your own success, your own sense of innovation, your own sense of mission, right? Because, you're not just sitting in that building waiting for people to knock on your door. You are proactively wanting people to come who need your help. And I think that's maybe that's the difference here, right?
That's the difference. We don't wait. We actively pursue hunger.
Yeah.
For instance, officials at the school systems can act on behalf of a family in need. So can social workers. So can clergy. So can medical professionals inside Berea in our service area.
Right.
Those groups can say, I've got a family. They can't or won't ask for assistance, but I know those kids are hungry. They can come and get food from us and take it to them, along with an application we hope that they'll fill out.
Yeah.
I ask every group I go and talk to please become our ambassadors. If you know someone who is in need of food, please, please, please tell them that they will be so welcome here. We want them to come.
Yeah.
It's the old sales manager in me saying, I want all the customers. I want everybody to come shop here first. Right. I want everybody in our service area who needs food to come and see us. I want to find them. I believe that the more we give, the more we will receive. And part of that is being savvy enough to talk about it in public media. We did 8 TV events last year where we hosted events that were camera worthy. Our Facebook posts are full of referrals to other agency and full of our story and why we do things the way we do things. That's Berea Food Bank on Facebook. Constantly communicating with people who would be our donors and who would be our clients about what it's like when you come to us for assistance. Our donors like it and our clients like it.
Yeah.
And when you're satisfying those two groups of people,
That's good.
the money comes. We're about at the limit of what that can do. But that's what's gotten us where we are now. So in a way we are, a victim of this passion to make sure that there is no hunger, that hunger doesn't find any home in Berea. That's a slogan. Hunger. Our goal is to make sure that hunger finds no home in Berea. I have a lot of little slogans like that.
And that's different than it's sort of qualitatively different than saying we feed the hungry. You know, in a sense, that sounds like the same thing, but it's really not, because you're not just trying to feed the hunger, you're trying to solve the hunger problem, which is different than being welcoming and generous. And when people come to you and knock on your door, you say, here you go, have what you need. It's more like saying, I'm going to go to you because I know you're out there, and I want you to come to us. It's like you mentioned sales, you know, the analogy of you're filling the pipeline, right?
Yes.
You're not just waiting for people to call you.
We have a door to be thrown wide open.
Yeah.
Not a gate to be guarded.
Right.
We have proxy pickup. It's an unusual thing for food pantries to have, in that someone can say, you know, my cousin is going to come pick up for us because, you know, we can't go for ourselves. We search for ways to make sure that we are accessible and easy to get to, and easy to find and easy to be referred to. No one is ever turned away from the Berea Food Bank empty-handed. Everyone is welcome. And the organizational structure of the food bank makes it so that we are constantly innovating.
Yeah.
The volunteers are constantly thinking of new ways for us to better serve the people who come to see us and the people who are yet to come to see us.
And you know, of course, like in a perfect world, we wouldn't need a food bank. Because, you know, the government or some other larger organization was making sure nobody was in that situation, that they're food insecure. And, you know, but we do need it. And sort of to try to wrap things up a little bit here. So you are this volunteer leader of a nonprofit. And I know very personally how demanding and sometimes stressful and difficult it can be to run a nonprofit organization, especially a small one, where resources are, you sort of fight for every dollar. That's the way I always put it.
Yeah.
Whatever job I've been in, I would fight for every dollar. And I know that's what you do. So how do you keep yourself motivated, energized, ready to go, and not find yourself sort of, losing sleep at night or not able to sort of get out of bed and do this work?
Well, part of it is that I have given away a great deal of the traditional work of a director of a food pantry. Our organizational structure is such that it's not a hierarchy. It's something called holacracy, where leaders emerge within the food bank.
What was that word?
Holacracy, H-O-L-O, holacracy. It's
like holistic, but
sort of. But it's a form of organizational, and it's an organizational structure that is as least hierarchical as you can imagine.
Okay.
And so I'm really comfortable sharing power. I'm really comfortable with innovation coming from all sorts of places. And I'll just give you a couple of for instances. Who's in charge of logistics for us for when food is coming in and where everything should go? Someone who's retired from a career in logistics. Who's in charge of our day-to-day administrative operation? Someone who describes himself as a retired secretary to a Fortune 500 CEO. We have people in volunteers in key positions who have a passion for one aspect of this work and bring their experience and their wisdom and their judgment to that. And I see my job as helping everyone share a vision of what the food pantry should be. My job is to gather resources and spend them wisely, and to be the public face and the communicator for the food pantry. But the day-to-day running of it, inside the framework that we originally set up back when I took over, is left to the volunteers.
Yeah.
You know those 5 women I told you about who trained me? Them.
Yeah.
And others who arise. And leaders naturally arise in this system and join with others, and we have innovations I never would have dreamed of.
Yeah.
We still get food. I'll give you one example. We still get food given to us.
Yeah.
People leave it at our door, and there are still some food drives, and that's great. Well, we still get a bunch of expired food.
Yeah.
Well, the volunteer said one day, Tony, rather than throwing out all this expired food, why don't we take the stuff that's like closer to, to being okay, and put it out on a free table with a big sign that says expired food, and people can take it if they want it, because we know it's perfectly good.
Right.
along with, some excess produce and things that we usually have. I never would have thought of that.
Yeah.
But the volunteers did, and they just started doing it. They didn't have to ask me permission
Right.
because they're in charge of client service and the people in charge of inventory and so on and so forth. They said, let's try this and see how it works out. It works beautifully.
Yeah.
So there's room for them to innovate, room for them to be accountable and responsible and have responsibility and authority. So I don't have to try to have my fingers in every pie. I've never enjoyed managing things that way. I've never enjoyed leading that way. I like to have good people in key positions and for leaders to naturally arise.
Yeah.
And so I have a lot less work to do than your average executive director.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I have to know where every sparrow falls.
Yeah. Well, Tony, I really want to thank you. This has been a great conversation, not only for this conversation, but for what you're doing. I mean, in this community. I mean, it really matters. It really makes a big difference. And I know people know that. I wish more people knew it. So your last word is, if someone's listening to this podcast and they really, really, really want to help the Berea Food Bank, how do they do it? What's the best thing they can do?
If you would like to support us, if you feel inspired in any way by what we've talked about, a different kind of pantry, write a check if you're still a check writer and send it to, make it to Berea Food Bank and send it to 108 Parkway, Berea, Kentucky, 40403. Or if you're like me and you prefer to give online, go to bereaoutreach.org and mash the donate button, bereaoutreach.org, and mash the donate button. And we would be happy to have that. It's tax deductible. We'll send you a thank you note and we'll send you a tax form. And you could even sign up to become a monthly donor if you wanted to.
Excellent, excellent. So please help the Berea Food Bank. As you've heard, it's an important part of this community. And Tony, thank you so much for this conversation. And again, thank you for being such a great leader and a person of real, true service in this community.
I am honored to have been invited on your show. And I can't wait to see what the reception is and for you to invite me back once we make some big changes and decide to grow.
For sure. Thank you, Tony. What I Really Want to Talk About is produced and recorded in the studios of Berea College News and Radio in Berea, Kentucky. You can learn more about this podcast and listen to all of the previous episodes at whatireallywantotalkabout.com. My contact information is on the website, so please get in touch with me if there's something that you really want to talk about. I'm Tim Monroe. Thanks for listening.